we're talking about iron, man.
Yes,
Not,
so we're going to deal with iron.
Not the iron
Right,
man,
so-
not the iron man in the rhythm section of the steel pan.
At Panorama now.
Yeah, but the iron man, the iron, right? So where we want to start
iron,
with it?
Yeah, so iron is an essential trace element.
Right.
Right, so an essential trace element. So what that means is it being an essential trace element, meaning to be a trace element, you have to be only need less than 100 milligrams per day. All right, not saying all the way up to 100 milligrams, but under that. So it could be very low, even lower than 100 milligrams, but that's the criteria to be classed as an essential trace element, or what we might call an essential trace mineral. Getting low levels of it, though all you need is trace amounts, if you don't get in or your levels are too low, even though only a little is needed, it can cause that. So iron is one of those. Now iron is the most abundant trace element in the human body. The human body is unable to excrete iron except through blood loss and through perspiration or excessive exercise. So people that are at risk for deficiencies when it comes to iron are, of course, menstruating women, people that exercise excessively, and of course people that give things like blood transfusions. All right, now in the category of iron you have two types. You have heme iron and you have non-heme iron. So I'm going on, of course, you know the usual, share the screen,
Right.
so that we could see some diagrams.
Let's see what we have here.
Here. Right, so we have heme iron versus non-heme iron.
Okay.
All right, so see you in a day. So heme iron, iron that comes from animal sources. So you only get heme iron, which will stand for hemoglobin iron, or iron that has a heme protein attached to it, is highly absorbable by the human body. Non-heme iron mostly comes from plants, but you do get non-heme iron in animal sources as well, both plants and animal, but it is less absorbable, all right, because it does not have that heme protein attached to it. All right, so the heme iron occurs in oysters, red meat, poultry, beef liver, and fish like sardines. The non-heme iron occurs in beans, nuts, lentil, green leaves such as spinach and pumpkin seed. All right, it consists of heme protein attached to the iron, which I mentioned earlier there, and the non-heme iron does not contain heme proteins attached to the iron. Of course, you see absorption rate is high with the heme iron, and absorption rate is relatively low with the non-heme iron. All right, excess heme iron can cause health risks, and the non-heme iron, does not cause health risks. All right, so those are just some comparisons. So to explain some stuff in that a little bit more, when it comes to the heme iron, of course, the absorption rate is between 15 to 35% from heme iron, which is from animal sources.
Okay.
When it comes to the non-heme iron, the absorption rate is between 2 and sometimes up to 20%. But usually it usually hovers around between 2 to 5%.
2 to 5%.
It's very low when it comes to the absorption rate. All right. Of course, too much iron can cause problems. But in rare cases, people have what I'll say epigenetic disorders that cause them to be predisposed to a condition called hemochromatosis, which is where the body stores excess iron, and that affects things like your liver, your lungs, your heart, pituitary glands, your skin, and your joints. All right, so that can cause problem with those things. It can cause liver failure, they could cause arthritis, it could cause heart failure, right? So it can cause a lot of problems if you have that, what I would call an epigenetic disorder, which people love to call hereditary disorder. But I believe a day I'll have to come in and explain epigenetics a little bit more in detail so that people could understand what that really is, all right? Because I don't like to use the term hereditary illness, because hereditary gives the impression that there's something wrong with your genes.
With your genes, yeah.
Basically gene expression. So I'll have to explain that on another date. All right. So iron sources, the best sources of iron is actually from meat sources, more so emphasis on red meat sources. Red meat sources are the best sources of getting in heme iron. In fact, in children, I don't know if you remember last year when I showed the dietary guidelines, the new dietary guidelines for infants, where they showed that infants should be fed exclusively breast milk for the first 6 months of life, because while heme iron for adults in red meat and from animal products has a high absorption rate between 15 to 35%, human breast milk, the iron in that has an absorption rate of 55%, which is, breast milk is the best source of iron. The problem is, after you reach the age of 6 months old, the amount of breast milk, the amount of iron in breast milk is not enough for even a 6-year-old, right? So this is why they said to introduce red meat into the diet of the child from 6 months old up to 12 months and beyond, all right? So exclusive breastfeeding for children would be breast milk, and then iron, what do you call it, red meat, because of the high amounts of heme iron and the bioavailability of heme iron in that red meat. Now, I know some people going and be like, oh, he's saying eat red meat, but I did show segments from before where they corrected the misinformation on red meat consumption. And this is also one of the reasons why I did this segment showing the hierarchy of studies, and what they showed was that all the misinformation that we have had with red meat was solely based on observational studies, and observational studies you cannot come to conclusions on. But when they did randomized control trials and systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized control trials, which are the highest degrees of studies that can possibly be done, they found that red meat cannot, and let me repeat that, unprocessed red meat cannot cause harm to the human body. Now, globally, you have iron deficiencies taking place at about 30% globally, right? Which help, when we think about it, it's not that people aren't consuming enough iron, but there are also factors that we need to understand when it comes to blockers of iron. There are many food sources that blocks the absorption of iron, something as simple as phytic acid. Phytic acid are found in your grains, your beans, your seeds, your nuts. So these are things that people eat on a regular basis, unaware that it has phytic acid in it, which is also called hexaphosphate, or what they'll call IP6, right? Inositol hexaphosphate, or what they call IP6, right? So that binds the minerals in your body to turn, or to what we'll say turn as phytates, or what we call phytates. And once that happens, it blocks, your body no longer has access to those minerals, iron being one of them. And iron is very essential to the body, especially with regards to something called erythropoiesis, which is where your body produces red blood cells in order to transport oxygen. Now, this is something interesting, is that, you know, a lot of ultra-processed foods, which a lot of people have been consuming during the whole COVID lockdown.
Yeah, when we say ultra-processed.
Right, so ultra-processed foods are things like flour products or heavily processed snacks and pasta and all these things that people love to eat that are heavily processed, right? So the ultra-processed foods are nutritionally deficient, right? Now, if you are consuming ultra-processed foods that are nutritionally deficient with low iron levels in them, you could end up with iron deficiencies. Some of the side effects of iron deficiencies are things like pale skin, you know, tiredness. You even have aggression and mental health issues associated with that. But that lethargic feeling where you just, you know, didn't want to do anything, that can be caused from iron deficiency. Also, breathlessness or short breath. Now, remember, during the whole pandemic, one of the symptoms of COVID was short breath.
Short breath, yeah.
I remember I talked to a doctor on this topic, and he was like, you know, giving me a little attitude. Oh, so what was causing people to end up with hypoxia, you know, hypoxia, so they're losing oxygen? And I was like, there are many things. People can be low on things like iron. Right?
Right.
Because if you are home, unable to go outside, right? So you're unable to live a normal life. What a lot of people have resorted to was just staying home and eating a lot of junk. So they're eating a lot of unprocessed
That is
foods.
true, eh?
So their intake of iron was reduced,
Yeah.
and many people started off prior to that with iron deficiencies, because you could have enough iron in your blood but low iron stores. That's an early stage of iron deficiency, but
Right.
it doesn't have symptoms yet. But the moment that those stores get too low and then your blood level, iron drops, then you're going to start getting these symptoms. And you might dare be thinking that you have COVID, when this time you have an iron deficiency.
Iron deficiency.
And they're not going to really check for that, because when you go to the hospital, you're going to spend how much, 2 weeks outside in a tent or whatever, right? Or how long it takes for them to get back the results from the COVID test. And you are there thinking that you have COVID. And if your iron levels continue to drop, then that is a possibility, right? So these are things that can happen, but a lot of people aren't aware of it. So what I tell people, because everybody don't need to know what I know with regards to health. You just need to know that I know it. And that's what I tell people. You know, you come to me and I explain certain things to you.
Right.
And my program is where I guide your nutrition. I guide your diet. And my program is a health coaching program. So I teach you how to eat, or how you're supposed to eat based on the biological and physiological design of your body. You're going to get that understanding. You're going to get that training. And therefore, that is how I reverse diseases. I don't put people on any supplementation. I don't put people on any drugs. Because some people might listen to this segment this morning and run outside and go and buy iron supplements.
Yeah.
And what happens is the iron supplements, that is what causes iron overdoses. So a lot of people overdose on heme iron, but the overdose on heme iron only happens through supplementation.
Okay.
It can't happen naturally. It does not happen naturally.
Okay.
Only through supplementation. A lot of children end up, you know, accidentally picking up the parents' iron tablets and stuff and consume it, and that is what can cause, could even cause death, because it can poison the organs, it can cause liver failure and stuff like
Right.
that. All right. So to avoid that, people, you know, come to me, book a consultation. You will get to understand nutrition and ask yourself, what have they taught you during all your years of schooling on nutrition? I could tell you, I learned more about rabbits and cows during my schooling days on their diets than on human diets, because they don't tell us that.
Yourself, yeah. It's true.
Exactly.
So,
right? So a lot of focus and emphasis is always on something else other than us. And I think, I just have the feeling that that is so, in order for us to blindly trust these corporations and associations with our nutrition and health. So I offer people an alternative. Educate yourself. I teach people, right? Teach people how to eat, what you should eat, why, based on how your body is designed.
All right. So people, if you want more information from Seth Board, you just got to call him on 761-1952. That is 761-1952. And Seth is always open to conversation. And you ask as many questions as you want, and he will answer them. The Holistic Health Clinic is on. And Seth, we're going to talk again next week, buddy. But thanks a lot for joining us.